Time for another board recap podcast. Dr. Smith, we have finally made it back into 2025 after Mother Nature tried to throw a wrench into our
Yeah.
plans.
You know, a lot of people said, Happy New Year. And I said, well, yes, it's a new year.
Right.
Well, we hope that the happiness comes in short order. But yeah, the weather, we haven't seen that for close to a couple decades. And just hats off to everybody, specifically EVSC custodians and supportive services. Our lots were cleared, sidewalks were cleared, our transportation. They, after they drove Sunday late morning, then they came in, had 5 of our routers come in and rerouted several of the bus routes because some of the subdivisions we still didn't think were safe for buses. And they contacted bus drivers, and bus drivers contacted the students and families. So
I think an organization this size, it would be easy for people outside of that to understand just how much it takes going in to get schools reopened after a large weather event like we experienced.
Just, think of food service feeding over 20,000 people when you've been closed since December the 20th.
Right.
That's no small feat either, just to accept the deliveries, get everything ready. And then also hats off to everybody in the city and county. I think those kinds of challenging times that we just experienced do really bring out the best in all of us.
Right. And kudos to our parents. I know maybe it have been a little extra stress, some of them not having power and having students home quite a bit longer than what they anticipated since this was on the heels of a 2-week winter break. So really just hats off to everyone. Once again, our community rose to the occasion.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, let's dive into last night's school board meeting, if you will. We'll start, as we always do, with good news. I know this is something that definitely you appreciate. You got to be a part of it and witness it firsthand, but our holiday video that we published and put out that was produced prior to the winter break, incredible student musicians, incredible talent. Our fine arts staff played a key role in this. You got to be a part of this. We recorded this at Evansville Trinity United Methodist Church downtown, beautiful venue, and just amazing.
It truly was. And I tell you, if listeners have not had an opportunity to listen to that video, I would encourage you to do
just
so.
Scroll back on our Facebook feed. You can watch that. Yeah.
Just, incredible talent.
Well, and you've always said, not only is this just a kind of a joyous thing to do, a festive thing to do, obviously with the holidays coming up, but it's a great way to showcase students who are phenomenal.
Yeah, students and our staff.
And our staff.
It's, I think, a small way for us to give back to the community that gives us so much.
And no wonder that if you look at some of the numbers on social media, I think on Facebook alone, it was viewed over 165,000 times. That's a lot of views. So no wonder with the talent that they saw. So kudos to everyone involved with that. Speaking of the holidays, and I know now it's funny, we're talking about the weather event, but this seems like a lifetime ago, but back prior to the holiday season. But just really last night to the board lifted the fact that our schools just really thankful to everyone in our schools because they work so hard to make those weeks in December special for our students. We all know whether you're a big kid or a little kid, you're excited with Christmas coming up, and schools and community partners and business partners who work with the schools really do some creative, festive things because they want learning to continue, but they want to make that a fun time of year, as it should be.
You bet. And if you're watching this podcast, there will be a familiar face there of our own Stephanie Terry, Mayor Terry. So
always a friend to our schools, definitely. But just always like seeing that. And really, they do go above and beyond. And so thanks to all of them for doing that. Also with good news, just prior to the winter break, the EVSC Foundation announced that this year's, hard to believe, 37th annual EVSC Summer Musical is going to be The Wizard of Oz. And that's always a great production to see live. This is a great experience for our students to be a part of, really a professional scale production like this. And there's so much buzz in the air around The Wizard of Oz, always is, but especially with the Wicked, excitement around Wicked. And so really looking forward to seeing this summer. And I know you got to be a part of these many, many years ago on the instrumental side. And so I know this is something you appreciate as well.
I was blessed to conduct the pit orchestra for a number of years. So fun time. And I'm just amazed at what high school students can do under the right conditions.
And I will say, when it comes to theater, I've talked to some of our graduates who have gone into theater. And when they talk about the experiences they had going through school, whether it's productions at our high schools, the summer musical, I mean, they have a tremendous amount of theater experience when they're in college or they're in working theater that just puts them in
Right.
great positions to audition and get roles.
And one of the great things about theater and actually all fine and performing arts is it gives you so many skill sets that are so vital,
Yes.
not only in the workplace, but just in the community
In anything you do
and
in life.
interpersonal relationships.
Sure.
To be able to perform like that,
Yeah.
you learn a lot about yourself.
For sure. So can't wait to see The Wizard of Oz. It'll be here before we know it. And then also in good news last night, mentioned the fact that kindergarten enrollment is now open. So if you have a child, if you know a child, your neighbor's child, your best friend's child, if they're going to be 5 years old by August 1st, visit evscschools.com, our website, everything you need to see to start that registration process. This is always an exciting time because, every year in May, we see our graduates go through commencement and leave us. And it just seems like in a blink of an eye that happens. But, prior to that, at one point, they too were starting as
That's
kindergartners.
right.
So we can't wait for that. So make sure you check that out if you need to enroll a kindergartner. And I think that's it for good news. And if you'll take us then through the next part.
I'll be happy to. And this being the first meeting of the new calendar year, a little bit different. We had the opening items after the Pledge of Allegiance of swearing in the newly elected board members. So we had three members that were newly elected to new terms. So we had Reverend Gamlin reelected again, and then Trustee uh, Karen Ragland, who now is the president of the board, was elected again, and then new board member Amy DeVries. So happy to welcome Amy on board.
Yes, definitely.
And then after good news, there was opportunity for public comment. And then what happens one time a year was the organization of the Board of School Trustees. So then they elected president, vice president, and secretary of the board. So election of president, that was Karen Ragland. Vice president was Mike Duckworth, and secretary of the board was Melissa Moore.
Can you just you never hesitated from making these comments, Dr. Smith, but just how much it means to our school district, to you as a superintendent, when you have that stability in a school board, and you're going through officers and appointments last night, and Amy DeVries joining the board. We're excited for her to be a part of that. But so much consistency. What an asset that is.
Without question. And I did say in some of my comments last night, the stability of the board, I think, has really led to the stability of this corporation. And it really is something that I don't know that we take for granted. I don't even know that it's in our conscious thought.
Right. But
But
it's not the norm in many, many school
it
districts.
clearly is not, but is so appreciated by me because I do have a little bit wider lens, not just in the tri-state, but also throughout the state of Indiana. And we are blessed to have an incredibly stable, forward-thinking board, and I think that has led to the success of EVSC.
I know you thank them for their leadership all of the time, and you mean it. Those aren't just words
bet.
you're just saying.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
Okay, so that takes us through that part, which again, unique because it was the first meeting of 2025, and I believe that sets you up for last night's consent items.
Yes. Well, there were two other items for organization, just consideration to approve the organizational resolution. That those are things that are required by law, as well as an appointment of the legislative liaison to the Indiana School Board Association. So then, moving on to consent, in addition to the minutes that were presented from previous meetings, 4.02 was the consideration allowance of payments. And this is a larger amount of $21,968,195.43. But that is because it really goes back to the beginning of December. Also includes 2 payrolls for our employees as well as insurance. So that's why that is a much larger amount than what we typically see. Then item 4.03 was the consideration to approve architects for potential construction projects in 2025. We're also blessed to have a great portfolio of architects, and they know our buildings and facilities well. So they really have specialized.
I was going to say they really do with different projects, don't they? Which is a great asset.
And have a great deal of talent here in Evansville. And then 4.04, consideration to approve the agreement with Power School Group, LLC. And this is specifically to help our middle school and high school schedulers learn how to use all of the features that are in Power School. And the cost of the training is actually offset by a credit that we have from Power School. So this will not be any additional cost to EVSC.
Okay. And then that took us into personnel recommendations.
So 5.01, personnel recommendations, and those are there for your perusal. 5.02 is consideration of contract cancellation, and that is according to the statutory provisions. Unfortunately, we had to part ways with the teacher, so that the process that's laid out in statute was followed there. And then 5.03, the swearing in of EVSC school resource officer. So we are excited to welcome another EVSC school resource officer on board.
Yes, we are. And then no action items last night, but we did have some information items.
Yes. So 7.01, consideration to adopt the policy of 7021, which is pest control and the use of pesticides. So this is really combining the former Neola policy that we had, as well as incorporating some newer statutory guidelines into a new policy that folds into the Indiana School Board Association's numbering system. So it just brings things up to date with the statute. We actually have gone beyond what the law and what this policy requires, but Chief of Staff Rick Cameron presented that to the board last night. And then when we move on to 7.02, consideration toward the contract for the 2025 turf replacement project for Bundert Stadium at North High School. Hard to believe that the high school opened.
Yes.
Actually, this time of year in 2012.
We still talk about the new North.
Yes, we do, even though it's
North.
12, 13 years old.
Right.
So this is going to replace the original turf. And then also there are some pavers at the entrance of North that have become a little bit uneven. So we're going to fix those, make them all level.
And if you've been to our other stadiums where our facilities office does a great job, not only maintaining, but then when it's time to replace a turf field and extending the life as much as they can, these new turf fields really perform in an excellent manner, and they look fantastic. Yes. So if you've been to one of the other stadiums where we've done that, you know what you're going to expect at North, and it'll be a great addition out at Bundert Stadium.
And to tell you, the utilization of our fields,
oh my goodness,
with these turf fields has
to be a point of pride for you that all of our stadiums for many years now have had turf as opposed to natural grass surfaces.
Absolutely. Then moving on to 7.03, consideration to award the contract for the D-Couple Elementary School parking lot paving project of 2025. So about the only time we can pave parking lots is when we don't have school in session. So we're going to repave T-Couple this year, pending board approval. And then 7.04 and 7.05, both were brought forward by the technology department. And we are asking the board to purchase devices for elementary grades 2, 3, and 4. And those would be Chromebooks. And then for kindergarten first, those would be Apple iPads. And then the purchase of this technology would be through the STAA account, which is a Student Technology Advancement account, as well as the Common School account. And if there's a need for extra funding, which we don't think there will be, provided that we actually receive the funds that we were just notified we would receive. But we put operations fund in there should there be a need for that. But I don't think that there will be.
Okay. And then that took us for continued business. I know you talked about, and you and I have already covered this, just kudos to everyone involved that helped to get us reopened following the winter storm. Also talked about some pending or potential legislation that's now that the Indiana legislature is in session.
Right.
And then you also had an announcement that you shared.
Well, I did. Thought a lot about this, prayed a lot about it, and I did notify board members yesterday morning, that would be Monday morning, that I'd like to retire on July the 1st. So, kind of bittersweet for me.
Sure.
Looking
Absolutely.
forward to this
43 years. This is your 43rd year, so I guess you've earned it.
Just 43 years, but, it has been a tremendous honor to work with students and families in the community. I had 19 great years as a teacher, then went into administration. And as you know, Jason, never really aspired to be superintendent, but that just
things happen sometimes,
worked out
the way they're supposed to. So,
and then 14 years later, I think it's time to turn it over to somebody else.
And the interesting thing is hearing you talk all of the time as you reflect on different things, looking back. 14 years as superintendent, but I hear you as much as you talk about that. You talk about those first years, almost 2 decades as a high school band and orchestra director.
Yeah. And when people ask, about my career, The things that I miss the most are the relationships I had with students and with families.
Sure. I
Uh,
think you're a teacher at heart.
yeah. Well, and the neat thing is those relationships still
Right.
exist today. In fact, I'm blessed to be able to work alongside many of our
Right.
former students.
Right.
Um,
And I'm
so
sure
that's
you appreciated seeing some of the comments on social media because a lot of those were not just from current community folks. They were from people that I could tell from reading that you had their children or they were the child
yeah.
way back when in marching
Yeah.
band.
So that's very humbling to read, and frankly, they impacted my life more than I could ever impact theirs. So, just a tremendous blessing, and God is good.
Well,
Has
there you go.
allowed me to do this, and
Right.
I've loved what I've done from a professional basis, and now I'm going to get to spend more time with my lovely bride of 34 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
But before you do that, we still have you for 6 months.
you bet.
So you're
There's
not going anywhere yet.
about 4 years worth of work that I want to get
There
done
you
in
go.
6 months, but we're going to do our best to get that done.
Okay. And if you weren't at or didn't listen to the board meeting last night, of course, any school board, a big responsibility for them is to hire a superintendent, which you've been in that role now 14
Right.
years. But one of the trustees talked about last night how it's time for them to, in the very near
Yeah.
future, get together and start to have some planning
Yes.
and discussions about what that's going to look like.
So very, very soon, the board will meet in executive session to really plan their next steps.
Sure.
As you said, it's been a while since they've done a search
Sure.
for a superintendent. But part of my responsibilities also is to make certain that we have plenty of individuals that are ready for this. It's a point of pride that in the last several years we have given birth to 3 area superintendents. They
Right.
were
That's true. In
within the
surrounding
EVSC
counties. Yeah.
fold. So I think we've demonstrated the ability to
Sure.
develop people for that leadership position. So the board will have, I think, plenty of great internal candidates. And then, should they choose to look beyond, if they want to look throughout Indiana or throughout the nation, they certainly may do that.
And while that decision rests with them, I know, knowing you, that you'll do whatever you can to make sure that it is a seamless transition.
Without question. I think frequent listeners will know that I attended EVSC schools as a student from kindergarten all the way up, graduating from Rice High School, and been here my entire adult life. I desperately want to see EVSC continue to succeed.
And I know you mean that
Yes.
sincerely. So, well, thank you, Dr. Smith, for going through the agenda. Thank you for sharing kind of some personal reflections
Sure.
there with your announcement. We can talk more about this over the next 6 months,
Yeah.
but appreciate you doing this. And it is good to be back in session for
Yeah.
sure.
So that was the end of the regular board meeting.
Yes,
And then once a year in January, we have to have then our finance meeting.
which
So
really is a separate meeting. We
it
end
truly
one
is.
and start another.
Yeah. So according to that theme, then we had roll call again. And then the action was the election of president, secretary of the board of finance. So traditionally, the newly elected officers are then serve also in this capacity as president and secretary of the board of finance. And then the whole premise and purpose of this meeting is to receive information, financial information from Dr. Underwood. So presentation of annual report of investments. And really, I've said this frequently, I'm not certain that shows a great deal because the investments, if you will, could be invest $1 million, take it out the next day, invest $1 million, take it out the next day. So
Commented on that
those
before,
investments
yes.
could be hundreds of millions of dollars when the reality is it could be the same $1 million. I know that that's somewhat an absurd comment, but I don't know that really gives you a great picture of our financial health. The next report, 12.02, which is the fiscal indicators from DUAB, I think that does a better job of providing a history of those fiscal indicators. And then additionally, while it's not part of this fiscal or finance meeting, Dr. Underwood on a monthly basis provides at least 4 and oftentimes 5 financial reports that really do indicate the true financial health of our district.
Yes, which we're pleased to say are always a lot of information there. But shout out to his department working closely with you, with our board, because it's always not so many not every district can talk about the financial health being at the level it is here.
Right.
And we're blessed to have that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you for including that second meeting in this discussion as well, Dr. Smith. And we appreciate all your thoughts on last night's board meeting.
Thank you so much. Great to be with everybody. Take care and God bless.